Hi knitters, welcome back to Rena Knits. In this week's video, we're going to be learning a new pattern. It is a pattern that looks almost like little mountains. It has a 3D effect, but it's fun to make, and it is something that you could utilize pretty much in anything. It will look really good on a scarf or a infant dress. It would even look good on the bottom of a sweater. Check it out and let me know your thoughts. The pattern I'm going to be knitting and showing today, it appears like a mountain, so I'm calling it a mountain pattern. I'm going to be using a yarn of weight 4 and needle size of 6, but I'm also going to have 2 place markers that I'm going to be putting in place where we're going to be increasing the stitches. Now this particular pattern requires a multiple of 18 stitches, so what I've done is I've cast on 36 plus 2 stitches, 1 stitch on either end, but then the 36 in the middle that will utilize for the pattern itself. So once you've cast on your number of stitches, we then move on to row 1. For row 1, the first stitch we're going to just slip, then basically we're going to be using the purl stitch, so we're going to purl 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we are going to purl 3 stitches together. So we're going to take the 3 stitches and purl them together. Then again, we're going to purl 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now here, we are going to increase a stitch on either side of this one, because we had decreased the 2 stitches here. You want to increase that, so we're going to increase 1 stitch on either side of this particular stitch. So this is where you're going to put your place marker, so that way you'll remember that this is where you're supposed to always increase. So we will take, now we don't want to create a hole, so we'll take the yarn, move it this way here, so you prevent a hole from being created. And now we purl the next one, and then we do the same thing again. We take the yarn, put it like that, and then purl it. Once you've done that, now we do the same thing for the next 7 stitches. We're going to just purl the next 7 stitches. Then we're going to knit 3 together. We're going to purl 3 together. Now if you have the metal needles like I do that I'm using, they can be a little slippery. That's why I'm having a hard time getting the stitches, but bamboo needles work well for this. And then we purl the next 7. Now here again, we're going to increase by 1 on either side of the stitch. So we're going to take the yarn, move it this way, so that way we prevent a hole from being created. We purl, put our place marker in place, we purl this stitch, and again we increase by 1. And then the last one we just knit. Now the wrong side, or all the even number sides, are all going to be just normal purl. No increases, no decreases, just purl across. So we're going to just finish this row by purling. For row 3, we're basically going to do the same thing, but now instead of 7 stitches that we purled, we're going to purl 6. So again, the first stitch we're just going to slip over, and the next we're going to do is purl 6 stitches. So we're basically going to keep decreasing till we get to 0. So 3, 3, 6, and as you can see, this is the one where we had done the 3 stitches, knit them, purl them together. So again, we're going to take 3 stitches and purl them together. And then we are going to purl 6 stitches again. Now we had increased 1 stitch on either side of the middle stitch right here. That's why you see the 1 extra. So we are now going to introduce 2 more stitches again, because we had decreased by 2 here. So what we're going to do is knit this one, purl this one, then introduce a stitch by doing it this way and purling this one, move our stitch marker, purl this regularly, increase here because we increase on either side of that particular stitch, and then purl, and then purl this one because we'd increased before. And now you're going to purl 6, and as you can see, this is the one where we had purl 3 together, so we're going to purl 3 again together. And then we are going to purl 6. And again, we're going to introduce a stitch on either side of this one. So we're going to purl this stitch and then increase a stitch, purl it, move our stitch marker, just purl the stitch normally, again introduce a stitch, okay. Introduce a stitch, then purl the next one, and reknit the last one. And then our wrong side is going to be all purl until we get to row 5. Now we're at row 5. So in this particular row, instead of 6, we're going to be purling 5 to get to the point where we're supposed to purl 3 together. So the first one, we're going to just slip. So the next 5 stitches we're going to purl. And if you notice, this one is right in the middle where we do the decrease. So we take these 3 and purl them together. And then again, we're going to purl 5. And as you can see, we had introduced 2 extra on one side of the stitch and 2 on the opposite, so we're going to just purl these, and we're going to introduce a new stitch, and purl, move the stitch marker, purl, and then introduce a new stitch, and purl, and then we purl the 2 that we had introduced previously. And now we're going to purl 5. And then we're going to purl 3 together. And then we're going to again purl 5. So you will continue basically this pattern of decreasing 2 by knitting the 3 together, but introducing 2 again on either side of the place marker until you get to the point where there's 0 stitches left to decrease. And you do this on all the odd numbered rows. All the even numbered rows are all purl. So I did was decrease, then I purled 5 again, and now we're at the point where we had introduced the 2 from the previous rows, and we're going to introduce another one. Move the stitch marker over, purl, and then again introduce a new stitch, and then purl the 2, and the last stitch you just knit. So row 6 you will do is purl, then row 7 onwards you would again repeat the pattern that we're doing, but instead of purling 5 we'd now purl 4, and so forth until you get to a point where there's 0 stitches to purl. Once you've reached where there are no more stitches remaining to decrease, you're at the completion of that particular portion. So now we're going to do the pattern again, but this time we're going to decrease and increase at a different location. So wherever we decreased, we are now going to increase the stitches, and wherever we increased, we're going to decrease the stitches. So basically what you're going to do now is take this place marker and place it here. Take this place marker and place it here instead of here, and you're going to decrease here. So it's just going to be the opposite. So I'll show you the first few lines, and then it's just the same all the way through. So if you notice, this is the one that you decreased. So this is the middle one from which you're going to increase on other side. So as you start the next section of your mountain, so you've done the first portion where you did the decreases and then the increases. Now we're going to do is increases. So you did the decreases, then the increases. Now what we're going to do is do the increases and then the decreases. So I've already moved my place markers to where I am going to be increasing. And here, where you could see this line going down, the thicker line going down, this is where you're going to do the decreases. So it's basically repeating the same pattern, but a slightly opposite of what we did. So before we did was decrease, then increase. Now we're going to increase, then decrease. So the first one, you're going to slip the first one, and then you're going to increase by 1. So you're going to increase the same way as we did before, and we're going to purl, so increased it 1, put your place marker here, and now you're going to purl this one and then increase again. So if you have the other type of place markers that hook up, you would hook up to this particular stitch right here, because you're going to increase on either side of the stitch from here on in. So we are going to increase by another. So you always increase by 2. And then same pattern, you're going to knit 7 and then decrease by, you're going to purl 7 and then decrease by purling 3 together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're back at row 3, and here we're going to slip the first one, but now we're going to purl 1, because this is the first increase we had done for the first row, and then we're going to increase by 1, move our stitch marker, purl the main middle stitch, and then increase by 1. Then increase 1 that we had introduced on our row 1. And now, this time, rather than purling 7, we're going to purl 6 to our decrease. So we're basically now repeating the pattern as we did previously. And here we are going to purl 3 together. And then again, we're going to purl 6. And then we're going to purl the one that we had introduced, increase by 1, move the place marker, purl 1, the main one, then increase by 1, then purl the one that we had introduced earlier, and again purl 6, decrease 3, purl 6, and then finish off the row. And the even numbers, the even sides, we're going to do all purl, and you'll continue this till you have no more stitches to decrease until you get to 0 again. And then again we're going to move our place markers, and now instead of increasing we're going to start decreasing again, and where we decreased we're going to start increase again. So you're going to just keep moving these out and in until you get the length of your pattern that you want. So you will continue this pattern until you get the length. 7, and now we are going to decrease by 3. So we will always decrease along this particular stitch. So this is where we had increased before, so this is where we're going to decrease now. So we are going to purl 3 together right here. Now if it makes it easier, you could have stitch markers at the location where you're increasing and at the location where you're decreasing, so that way you don't have to look at how your stitches are coming, you just know it by the place marker to make it easier. And then you're going to again purl 7 until you get to the increase portion. 4, 5, 6, 7. And here we're going to increase by 1. So lift this, put this over, and then knit 1, move your place marker over, purl 1, and then increase again, over, and then again purl 7 till you get to the decreased. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're going to purl 3 together. And then again, we're going to purl till the end. And in my case, the last stitch, I'm just going to knit, because that's my this one's just a knit. And your even rows are still all purls. So once you do all purls, we'll get to row 3. Now once you've done your last your even number purl row, you have completed your second part of the same pattern as the first part. The only difference was in the first part you did the increases here. This time you did the increases where the 2 stitch markers are, or place markers are. And now as you continue with the pattern to the length that you want of your project that you're doing, you will now again move these. This one will go here where the decreases were, and this one will go here where the decreases were. And you would now decrease where you increased and increased where you decreased. So just do the opposite. So each time, so after each phase of where you're increasing 8 and decreasing 8 stitches, you're going to do the opposite and then again the opposite. So it's going to be a zigzag pattern on the sides and kind of like little mountain tops in the middle. So you're going to keep having those particular pattern, and you're going to have like a zigzag pattern. So this is like a perfect pattern for a scarf or a border for a dress, sweater. If you like this video, don't forget to click that like button. And if you're new, welcome. Don't forget to click that subscribe button to get the latest videos on knitting projects, knitting patterns, knitting ideas, and much more. Relax, enjoy, and keep knitting.